In this video, we're going to learn how to make a sheet that would record our estimates and costs to date and allow us to look at an overall progress on a construction site, for instance. And we're going to use a Sparkline, and we're going to use build this with these up and down triangles and conditional formatting in order to, at a glance, see how we're doing with our construction progress. In this example, we're actually collecting the data via a form so that you could easily collect from your workers or yourself as you're going in and spending for the project. You submit a form. The form could be on your phone, and anytime you get an expense, you could add it by your categories and then record your progress in a very easy to see way how you're doing against your estimates. Our first step in building something like this is to set up your categories, whatever categories you think you need, and the estimates that you would have for each specific category. Then, of course, we'll need to add a actual expense category. We'll call this cost to date. Let's go ahead and format that the same. In column D, we're going to need to calculate the difference between the cost to date and the estimate. So we're going to have that be equal to C minus B, C2 minus B2. And in column D, we're going to need to calculate the difference between the estimate and the cost to date. So that's going to be equal to our estimate minus our cost to date. And when we fill this out, we will go ahead and copy this formula down. Then we're going to want to have a column to show a conditionally formatted column to show an up-down arrow if we've exceeded or not exceeded our estimate. There's several ways to get a hold of these character symbols. On a Mac, there's a little utility that lets you do that, but you can also use the car symbol, character symbol, and you could do a search on car up, triangle, car down, triangle, and then you could, here's a website that actually has an example of the down pointing triangle. It's car 9660 and the up is 9650. So one way we can do this is just to, over here, we're going to equal car 9650, and that's my up arrow, and this is equal to car 9660, I think. Yes. So there's my up and down arrow. And now that I've collected them, I can go ahead and copy that. And if I come over here and paste values only on a Mac Command-Shift-V, I get the up arrow. And if I grab this and go ahead and copy, and then here what I'm going to need to do is paste the value only. And notice the difference between this is a formula, and this is just the symbol. So I'll copy just the symbol, and then I can come here and go ahead and paste. And now I have my up and down arrows, and I'm going to use them again. So I think what I might do, because this is a formula, I'll copy that, and then I'll come here and I'll paste values only. And now notice I have my up arrow and my down arrow, but I got those with the car symbols. So what we're going to want to do in this column is an if statement. Equals if, and our logical expression is going to be if, in this case, if C6, or C2, excuse me, if C2 is greater than B2, then our if statement, we want to use the down arrow key, or the down triangle. And we'll choose our down arrow key, and we're going to have to change that, but else we want the up arrow key. And that should give us an up or down arrow depending. So if we had a cost to date of $1,200, then we'll turn that into a down arrow. We'll do some conditional formatting. Now, right now we're referencing these two cells, so what we're going to have to do is go ahead and in our formula, what I'm going to have to do is copy this, and then when I come into this formula, what I'm going to want to do is not reference G3. I'm going to want to go ahead and use the actual symbol so we don't have to, I can get rid of these, and then that should still work. And then if I grab this one and copy it, I can come back here, and instead of referencing G4, I can surround by quotes and paste in my symbol. And now this works without me having to have these symbols here. So I'll be able to get rid of these, and my formula is still going to work. Now, in addition to showing that that's an up arrow, we're still in the positive, what I want to do is concatenate the difference. So what we'll do is we'll concatenate using the and symbol, the ampersand, and we're going to do in parentheses B6, B2 minus C2. And I'd really like to format that as $1, so I will go ahead and, no, I'll just leave it. I won't format it as $1. And now I can see that essentially I could use the autofill here, and now I've, in this column, I actually have my symbols of up and or down. So let's see what happens if I move my cost up to 1,200. I'm down 200, or I've overspent 200. So I could eliminate that, and you can see our formulas are now working. The next thing I'd like to do is go ahead and conditionally format this. So I'm going to select the column, and I'm going to conditionally format. And what I want this to do is what I'm going to want to do here is my format rule is going to be if the cell contains, and then I'm going to need to paste in my symbol. If it contains an up arrow, then I actually want it to turn green. Let's use this green color. Actually, I don't want to change the, I want to change the text color to, let's say, this green, and make it bold. So if we have an up arrow, and then I really don't want to apply that to that top row, so I'm going to switch this to E2. So if we have the up arrow symbol, then it's going to turn that green. we'll have to add another, we're going to have to add another rule. But in order to do that, I need to get on my clipboard the down arrow. So I'm going to copy my down arrow. And then I'm going to add a conditional format rule. And it's going to be from E2. I didn't highlight that first. So from E2 to E, 1000, I guess it's going to make me do that. If the text contains my up arrow or down arrow, then it's going to turn red. And we'll just use this red. Again, I'm choosing, I just want to choose the text color. I'll go ahead with that and make it bold and say done. So now that should apply, and if I exceed my cost, $1,100, then you can see that turns red and I get a down arrow. Our next step is to maybe put some values in each one of these. I'll go ahead and just copy this down just so I have some data here. And then this formula, because I have data to the left, I can double click, and now I've got this data. I'm going to use column D. I'm going to eventually hide it, but I'm going to use column D in order to build a sparkline. So far so good. If we should see that we're up a little bit on most of these, but if, let's say, we go to $500 here, then we're down $100. So everything seems to be working. Our next thing we want to do is use the Sparkline function to build a little progress bar over in column F. So I put the formula on my clipboard, and be easier, I'm going to go ahead and paste that in. Let's take a look at what this means. So if D6 is greater than or equal to 0, so that's my difference here. So if it's greater or equal to 0, I want to build a sparkline using C6, okay? And these are the parameters of the sparkline. Let's take a look at the sparkline function. We have, we're measuring the sparkline. In this case, it's just C6. And we're going to use a chart type bar, and we're going to set it up the max. The max is going to be B6. That's my estimate. My color is going to be green. Or else, we're going to do the sparkline of D6. I'm going to put that away. D6, and again, a bar, and this time the color is going to be red, and the max is going to be B6 plus C6. So in other words, we're going to have a sparkline be red or green depending on whether or not D6 is greater than 0. So let me go ahead and hit enter on that, and you can see I have a progress. This formula I pasted, of course, wasn't working because I was on, I copied the formula from line 6 on my other sheet. So I had to change all these to D2. So now you can see if my cost to date was 300, I am looking now at my sparkline, sort of making a progress bar. Notice if I go to 800 out of my 1,000, I'm approaching the end of the sparkline, and if I get to 100, it's if I get to 1,000, if we max out, that's the bar full, and as soon as I go over my estimate, my sparkline will turn red. So let's go ahead a couple of things. I want to go ahead and format this as currency, and then I can copy this formula down, and now I can see my progress. I can see where I'm over and under using the sparklines. And then finally, maybe just to make it stand out a little more, I'm going to turn the sparkline a slightly different color. And then I'm going to hide column D. And now, as I change my estimates, as I bring things in, I can watch my sparklines grow, and I can get an idea of where I stand with my construction costs as we're moving on at a glance. And again, as I pointed out as we began this exercise, this can be hooked up to a form so that you can submit all of these amounts. And then in the example I was showing, my cost to date is actually a sum if coming from the expenses. So as we fill out a form, this would automatically change. And just to show you that, what you can do, if I were to go to my live form here and say I've got, more costs on labor and it's, another $500, and go ahead and before we do that, let's take a look. Labor's at $1,100 and we're cost at $1,190. As soon as I submit, you can see that I have gone up to $1,690. We're $590 down, and our sparkline is growing. And it also is showing that I'm over budget here. In this finished example, I had added sort of a total estimate. So we have built a system that is going to give us these up and down triangles, conditionally format, and then also conditionally format with an if statement my sparklines as we exceed or still have room for growth on our project. Taking a look at cleanup, hey, if we go to $700 of a cost, you can see how my sparkline grows.